Hello everyone, this is Vignesh from Phoenix Financial Training, here to share some exam tips relevant to the ACCA June 2017 P4 examination. Uh, as always, this is a very time pressured exam, and critical to passing the exam is being very religious with how you allocate your time across the various questions. Uh, I hope all of you have been practicing questions under time conditions, and before you go into the exam, it is highly advisable that you try at least a mock or two in 3 hours and 15 minutes, which is the time that you get in your examination. There are two sections in P4, Section A with a 50-mark question, which is compulsory, and Section B with 325-mark questions, of which you need to do two. In terms of areas that constantly tend to come up and are of particular importance for the June 2017 examination, I would assume that the examiner is more likely to go down the route of a standard foreign NPV or APV. Whether it be in section A or B, we can't say for sure, but it has been a year since he's gone down that route testing foreign NPVs, and it's quite likely that you might have a question with foreign NPVs, which has all the standard stuff like top-up tax and components being purchased from abroad, and exchange rates and conversion from foreign currency to home currency, so on and so forth. It is quite easy to sort of put alongside a foreign NPV, or for that matter an APV, a little bit on de-gearing and re-gearing of betas, which can then be used to calculate the WACC or the ungeared K, or the K, as the case may be, depending on whether you have a foreign NPV or APV. So please do make sure you get used to question scenarios where you have two betas of two different companies which you need to club probably to get to the relevant beta for a project, or this could come up in the context of valuations as well. As you can imagine, it's not just in the context of NPVs, where you have two companies which are merging and you combine their betas to get a combined beta. Or alternatively, you could have a scenario where you have an entity which is now being broken up into two parts, and you're doing a project in one of those businesses. So you need to split up the company and pull out the beta relevant to one part of the business. And I think that could be a major part of your exam, either in section A or B. So please do make sure you get used to how you combine companies and how you break up companies to get to the KE back and so on. Valuations has always been there in the exam. It's almost a sure shot question. There has been a little bit of overdose of valuations on section A recently, so it's quite possible that this might be a standard section B question. Although one can't discount the possibility of a section A question. You need to obviously be used to working with scenarios with free cash flow valuations, with PE ratio based valuations, and dividend based valuation methods, as these are the ones that get very frequently tested in the exam. Besides this, risk management is yet again a sure shot question in the exam, more likely to be section B, I feel. And given the huge amounts of foreign exchange risk that's been tested recently, the examiner is more likely to go down the route of interest rate risk. But there has been, there have been questions in the past where the examiners brought in about 15 marks of interest rate options, futures, collars, and maybe FRAs, and then another 10 marks of multilateral netting, which is forex, or maybe a small little forex hedging bit as alongside the interest rate risk hedge question. So there have been questions in the past where the examiners try to mix and match forex and interest rate. So it would be a huge risk not to look at foreign exchange risk, although I suspect interest rate risk is more likely to be examined in the upcoming examination. Please also be prepared to do forecasts of the financial position as well as the earnings of a company over a 3 or 4 year period, which could be based on existing financials that you've given and proposals that you've been given with regards to new borrowings and new investments and so on. So the examiner could give you a scenario and he says, we're going to do this. How will our financials look 3 years from now, or how will it look next year? Sometimes it's easy to tag that along with a question on ratios, where you do the forecast, on the back of that you calculate and comment on the ratios. And many a time when you're asked to talk about acceptability of a particular proposal, it's important to always consider the benefits of the proposal as against the costs. As you will appreciate, the objective of companies is generally to maximize shareholder wealth and, where possible, keep the cost of capital, which is the required return for investors, minimal, as every company wants to keep the cost of financing minimal. These are the core areas around which I suppose your paper will revolve. There could be bits and pieces of easy stuff like BSOP, real options valuation using BSOP for maybe about 10-12 marks, standard valuation, and anybody who's practiced a couple of questions on those lines would definitely know how to get it absolutely correct. Besides these other bits and pieces, you obviously need to make sure you've at least gone through a couple of questions on include dividend capacity and evaluation of dividend policy, as well as Islamic finance, and make sure you go through CDOs, collateralized debt obligations, as well. While there was a question on the back of an article nearly 1.5 years ago, since then it's not been tested, and the examiner might just choose to go back to this idea from about 1.5 years ago, which was tested somewhere around about end of 2015. So I think these are broadly the main areas I would want you to make sure you're really on top. But the key to passing the exam, as you can imagine, is being very focused inside the exam hall and trying to complete as much as you can, trying to do the wordy theoretical discussion assumption bits with a priority, because those are bits where you can definitely score marks. Can't make many mistakes as long as you've practiced a few questions. So I think that's it. I wish you all the very best for your examination. Don't panic, keep cool. Remember, about 35 to 40% of the candidates globally pass the exam, and you could very easily be one of them as long as you keep your composure and keep doing the small bits correctly. If you get stuck with something, don't you panic, move on, show the method. You might have to probably sacrifice a couple of marks as long as you show the method for the rest of your calculation by assuming and moving on with your calculation. Whenever you get stuck, you will be perfectly fine. The exam is not going to be easy, no doubt, but as long as you keep your composure and calm, you will be perfectly fine. Thank you for listening and wish you all the very best.